Direct or contributor, Forge G, Global Impact.
Hello from Vermont in the United States. Welcome to Global Impact.
Hola, mi nombre es Sheila Escobedo. Me encuentro en la ciudad de Guatemala. Bienvenidos a la conferencia de Impacto Global.
مرحبا من اسطنبول وأهلا وسهلا بجلوبال إمباكت.
مرحبا، معكم سوسن من شيكاغو فلسطين. أهلا وسهلا بجلوبال إمباكت.
Saludos desde Santiago en Chile y bienvenido o bienvenida a Global Impact.
Hello from White Plains, New York in the United States. Welcome to Global Impact.
Pozdrowienia z Glasgow w Szkocji. Witaj w Global Impact.
Hello from Charlotte, North Carolina in the United States. Welcome to Global Impact.
Hello et bonjour from Alberta, Canada. Welcome to Global Impact.
Hello from Montreal and welcome to Global Impact.
Hello from Houston, Texas in the United States. Welcome to Global Impact.
Hello from Lynchburg, Virginia in the United States. Welcome to Global Impact.
Tina koto katoa, no mai harimai ki te Global Impact. He mihi nui kia koto mai I turanga nui a kiwa Aotearoa.
Hola, bienvenidos al Global Impact Conference en modalidad virtual. Mi nombre es Pedro Sánchez, soy estudiante del Colegio de Creolía Americano en el grado 10. Yo y mi compañero aquí, Juan Pablo, somos líderes del curso de sostenibilidad en high school.
¿Qué tal? Mucho gusto, mi nombre es Juan Pablo, yo soy de grado 12 y junto aquí con mi compañero hemos estado liderando el curso para poder mejorar la relación que tiene nuestra comunidad escolar con el medio ambiente.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Priya Kennedy, je suis la chef du conseil étudiante à l'école de study et je vous souhaite la bienvenue à la conférence sur l'impact international.
Hi, my name is Sophie. I'm the sub-head girl student council at a school called The Study based in Montreal. We hope that you enjoy the Global Impact Conference.
Yes.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Global Impact Virtual Conference. My name is Kayla Holland, and I am from Charlotte, North Carolina in the United States. I'm a member of the Global Impact organizing team, and I am the host for this session. This is our last session in the day, so thanks so much for sticking with us. This year, our theme is elevating the human story, putting human stories back at the heart of education. Through amplifying global educator voices, we will explore storytelling as pedagogy, leadership, and ethical technology use, connecting classrooms worldwide and centering dignity, equity, and lived experiences in learning. We want to begin today with the message of peace in these turbulent times. At Global Impact, we believe that education is one of the most powerful forces for peace in the world. Across borders, languages, and cultures, we come together not to agree on everything, but to listen, to learn, and to build something better together. In a time where division is easy, we choose connection. In a world that often speaks loudly, we choose to understand deeply. Each voice in this conference represents not just a country, but a commitment to compassion, curiosity, and shared humanity. Peace is not something we wait for, it is something we practice through dialogue, through collaboration, and through the work we do with our students every single day. This is our Global Impact. I'm honored to be part of this Global Impact community. Today alone, we have 34 presenters, 17 organizers working really hard behind the scenes, all representing 22 countries across 6 continents. And that doesn't include all of you, the incredible participants taking part in today's sessions. When people from this many backgrounds and experiences come together, powerful things can happen. Today isn't just about sharing ideas, it's about sparking connections, challenging perspectives, and driving meaningful change forward. Now on to our session. This session is in English. If you need to turn on the captions, please do so by following the directions being placed in the chat. We have an absolutely incredible lineup of speakers today. It really has been a wonderful day. And if you've been with us for each session, I think you can attest to that. But this presenter is definitely one of our incredible speakers. It's my pleasure to introduce Abeer Ramadan-Shinnawi. Abeer is a Palestinian-American educator and founder of Altair Education Consulting, where she partners with schools and organizations globally to design culturally responsive, inquiry-based learning. Drawing on over 2 decades in classrooms, district leadership, and international professional development, her work centers on missing and marginalized narratives, particularly Arab and Muslim histories, within global and social studies education. Abeer supports educators in cultivating critical thinking, belonging, and global citizenship through curriculum, storytelling, and community-rooted practice. I am beyond excited for this session. So Abeer, the floor, or screen as it were, is yours.
Thank you so much. And no pressure since I'm the last session today, but I'm excited to be here. So thank you. I'm going to go to my slide deck. Can everybody see my slide deck? Sorry, this is something new for me, so I need to know how I'm doing this. All right. So today we are going to be talking about, since my background is in social studies, I want to talk about how we can develop critical thinkers beyond the single story. And especially the idea when we're talking about Arab Americans, a lot of times they are either, as we say, hypervisible in a negative way or invisible where they're not even mentioned in the curriculum. So our objectives today are to examine how Arab American history is marginalized, simplified, or erased, use video and historical scholarship as inquiry sources, and apply strategies to disrupt single narrative curriculum. Since this session is only 30 minutes, I do want to provide enough time for some question, answer, reflection, and I will be providing a small activity just to show you that there are resources out there that you can use in order for you to bring Arab American history into your classroom. But a little bit about me. I'd say my voice, our story. As I was being introduced, yes, I'm a child of Palestinian immigrants. I'm the cute one with the polyester suit. That's why I'm so upset. I grew up in Chicago. If you know anything about Chicago, it has the largest Palestinian population in the country. I currently reside in Maryland, but I'm a Chicagoan at heart through and through, especially a Southsider. But that really helped shape my identity and understanding more about the exclusion of Arab American history, but also how, as I became an educator, we could really bring it to the light. My mantra is if we do not tell our stories, someone else will, and they don't always get it right. A lot of times they don't get it right at all, and they are not very apologetic about it. And it ends up becoming very tiring when you constantly have to explain your history, your story to people when you're talking about it from your own lived experience. And that is what led me to create my consulting company, Altair Education Consulting, because I wanted to create curriculum but also provide professional development for educators in order for them to be able to implement the curriculum with fidelity, but also help them build their toolbox as well as they continue to grow in this particular topic. So the reason why this is very important to me is not necessarily just because it's my history and why I think as a historian, it's very important. I love this quote from Jay-Z. I'm not a Jay-Z fan, but I love this quote, numbers don't lie, check the scoreboard. School climate and safety concerns for Arab and Muslim students is on the rise. And now, unfortunately, with the current political climate, I don't think it's something that is really going to subside. But some statistics over the last couple of years, this was a report about 3 years ago from CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations, where it says Arab and Muslim students, 50% of students reported feeling a lack of safety, belonging, and emotional comfort in school. And then 43% of students reported missing school as a result of bullying. And we know that the more students see themselves in the school and the climate, the more they feel safe and welcomed. And that's why it's important for us to really do our due diligence and find the resources so all of our students feel seen, but also students who don't identify with that particular community can also learn from others and identify and see what the commonalities are, but also develop a better sense of community. So I have a question for the audience, and this is where I'm going to go to the studio and see if I can get some people to answer this question for me. Why do you think Arab American stories are often missing from U.S. history? I want any really answers. No, nothing is really a bad answer. I'm just interested to see what my audience has to say. I know there's a lag. Okay, not part of the classic narrative. Okay, Dr. Hart, what do you mean by classic narrative? What's a classic narrative in your perspective? Not enough information being shared to feel, oh, I like that one, confident and included. Okay. That's a very important one, yes. And that happens with a lot of different communities, especially when we're talking about social studies. Ooh, Arab phobia. Thank you, Rawan. Yeah, Arab phobia or anti-Arab hate or anti-Muslim hate. Yes, that's true. So Arab phobia leads to, what are some of the things that would leave people missing? The Christian nation. Okay. And I think to make it more general than just the Christian nation, I think what we would consider WAS, like white Anglo-Saxon, the very white version of what we consider as American history. Very good. We can get one more comment and then I'll go back to our slide deck. Fear of the other. Yes, Amelia. And all of these are wonderful answers. And you all touched upon the reasons why the Arab stories are often missed from U.S. history, anti-Arab hate. It's not part of the larger narrative, fear of the other, people don't have the information. But a lot of it does come down to what we would consider, basically the erasure of Arab history because of the othering, unfortunately, and because of this concept and fear of who Arab Americans are. But in reality, Arab Americans have been in American history since the 1800s. So what we're going to do now is we are going to watch about a 5-minute video. And as you watch the video, I just want you to take in everything that you hear and see. And then there are a couple of questions that I'm going to have us answer after. And this is a good way of starting with your students. And I'm going to leave you with some more resources. But PBS, let me share this tab instead. Oh, did I get that right? Sorry. Let me go back. My fault. So this is a great series from PBS, Arab Americans and Anti-Immigrant Discrimination, but it's an entire Arab Indianapolis, a hidden history. Now, you may not be from Indianapolis or from that region, but it's a great way because when we think of Arab Americans, we tend not to think of Middle America. We tend to think of larger cities like Boston and New York, or even on the West Coast in California. But a lot of Arabs migrated and built a lot of the cities that are what are current day, the Midwest, where I'm from. So we're going to watch this video. Let me share this tab instead. And it's about a 5-minute video about Arab immigration from the 1800s to World War I in Arab Indianapolis, and see if there are, and is there anything that resonates with you and new information that comes up. So I just want to make sure that we're good with this. All right. And let me make this larger. I'm going to play it, make sure everybody can hear.
The heart of Arab Indianapolis in 1900 was right here.
We good?
It's now buried underneath Lucas Oil Stadium. Around that time, there would have been about 100 Arabic speakers on one street, Willard Street. A lot of the men were peddlers. The women worked from sunrise to sunset, hauling scraps from a nearby lumber yard to fuel their wood-burning stoves. The townhouses they lived in were just 15 feet wide, and up to 10 people might be staying in them at one time. I invited Andrea Watts, a descendant of that first generation of Arab Americans, to join me in the part of town they once called home. Andrea works for the city of Indianapolis, and part of her responsibilities touch on historic preservation. I was curious what she knew about the history of her ancestors here.
This is it. This is where you would have found all the Arabic-speaking people. And if you can just imagine, right over there, there would have been little kids speaking Arabic and playing on a pretty dusty street.
Yeah. We're standing on a little bit of history.
But I don't think that everyone saw the Arabic-speaking Syrian colony of Indianapolis in the same light. In fact, I brought here for you to read a little excerpt from the Indianapolis Journal in 1903.
Okay.
And here's what they said about
All right.
This place.
If the prospective visitor to the Syrian quarter expects to come across a gaudy place of painted mosques and minarets, he is doomed to meet with disappointment. He will find instead 2 rambling rows of old, broken down one-story frame houses bordering a half block of the dirtiest street in all of the city.
The dirtiest street.
The dirtiest street. Okay. Wow. I mean, okay. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like they were not a fan of the area.
Well, right. And I mean, well, and it just reminds you, these people started with very little.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me show you. There are traces.
Okay.
There are traces of what it used to be like in 1900. And I want to show you a couple of those.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Over 500,000 Arab people left the Ottoman Empire for North and South America before World War I. Like so many immigrants, they were pushed to emigrate by a bad economy and drawn to the Americas by the allure of a better life. They came to the United States by steamship and sometimes by rail through Canada or Mexico. Some landed in Indianapolis. For others, Indianapolis was just a stop on the way to another city in the Midwest, like Terre Haute, St. Louis, Chicago.
Ooh.
After our walk, Andrea and I sat down at a nearby restaurant to talk about her Arab immigrant ancestors here in Indianapolis. Do you know if you have any peddlers in your family background?
On my grandmother's side, they were, yeah.
And then from peddling, the family mostly went into the grocery business.
I know that they started a grocery store in Hawville called Habush Market off 16th Street.
I did a little research on your family, and I want you to take a look at the 1920 census page and see who you can find there.
David Habush.
And who is David Habush?
That is my grandmother's father.
Your grandmother's father.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Son, daughter, Margaret. My great aunt Margaret.
Okay.
Wow. I've never seen this before.
And do you recognize any other names there? Is George?
Yes. Son.
If you look down here, he worked with his father in a retail market, a grocery, according to the 1920 census. Now, do you have any idea where that first grocery store was located?
I don't.
Okay. Well, I found the sale of the first property that your ancestor bought. It's a little hard to see. Try to make that out.
Pauline Schumacher to David Habush, part of Lot 17, the corner of Dearborn and New York. Okay. I did not know that existed. Wow. Yeah, I knew about the West Side Market, but did not know that there was a East Side Market.
Do you think that most people who live in Indianapolis are aware that Arabs have been part of this place since the late 1800s?
I don't. And I think that there is a really beautiful, rich history and a lot of stories to tell.
Excellent. So I'm going to get rid of that. Get back here. So we're going to go back to our slide deck. And I have a question. So this is a really great way just to do a little introduction of Arab Americans. So 3 questions. What was cultural life like on Willard Street, where the Arab American community was? What prejudices did Arab Americans face? Compare the discrimination that Arabs faced to that of other groups. What was common? What was different? What were some of the occupations of Arab Americans living on Willard Street? Explain how their occupations helped build the economy and the community. History that never gets mentioned, yes. So any one of these 3 questions, if this is just a 5-minute clip, and again, it's in Middle America. I think number 2 is also very poignant to discuss with your students or with your community if you're having them watch this, is what prejudices did Arab Americans face? Now, if you continue watching the rest of the series, you'll notice that the prejudices that were faced were very similar to what Italians had faced, or Irish Americans had faced, or the Chinese had faced, which is the fact that they were dirty, they didn't belong, they lived in really rundown parts of the neighborhood. But then also their occupations were based on whatever they could get. Now, Arabs became peddlers, which later on became grocery store owners, because Arabs historically, if you know anything about Arab culture, merchants and being merchants is something that's very common in Arab culture. So for them to come and be peddlers on the street was not something that was different for them. They were actually just doing it in a different time and in a different place. And another thing about Arab Americans that Professor Edward Curtis talks about, which isn't discussed enough, which ironically is talked about in one of the books that I'll share as one of the resources, is this idea that when we think of migration or immigration, we really think of it as just linear. People go from their mother country to a state in the United States. They may go to one more place and then that's it. But that's not the case with a lot of Arab Americans. There's this thing called step migration. And what ends up happening is Arabs do come from the mother country, at the time, the Ottoman Empire, which is one of the reasons why they were considered white on the census, but also the majority of them who did come from the region of what is now the Levant were called Syrians because at the time it was called Greater Syria. There was no Lebanon until about the 1920s with Sykes-Picot. Palestine was under Ottoman rule. Jordan really didn't exist much as Jordan. So it's all really Greater Syria. That's why a lot of the people who are either Lebanese or from Palestine were also considered Syrians. So these are just some questions that you can ask from that short 5-minute clip that really gives you an identity of who Arab Americans are, especially in the region of the Midwest, but then gives you a deeper question as to, okay, if they were in Indianapolis, what was happening in other parts where we know Arab Americans were part of the labor movement in Boston? We had women who were working in a lot of the garment factories in Boston. What about that? But also fascinating history of step migration of Arab Americans who actually didn't want to go through Ellis Island because at the time going through Ellis Island, they had to have this really painful test of with their eye. They would take one of those hooks that they used to lace up shirts. So Arabs avoided that. They would actually go through Mexico. And then they developed an identity called Latinidad, and I can do a session on that another time. And from Mexico, they went up to California. Now, Anaheim, California, and parts of Boyle Heights have a large and also deep, rich history of Arab Americans as well, due to step migration. So what I like to do is when we're talking about these questions, these are also questions that really can shed light on the story of Arab Americans. So with this really short clip, and you have these questions, the question I always pose to people is, what is one way you will move beyond a single story in your curriculum? How can you, now that you know there are resources out there, what can you do in order to move beyond a single story in your curriculum? The resources are out there. I think one person said it best, people are afraid to say or do or have the wrong resources. But PBS is a really great way of showcasing bite-sized pieces about Arab Americans and start with Indianapolis as a beginning and see where it can go with your students, because students are inquisitive enough as they are, but also be a great way for you to, like one of the questions was, compare the Arab American experience to the experience of other communities as well. Some of the resources that I do want to leave you with, which I think are amazing. This is a wonderful book, Arab Routes, Pathways to Syria and California, is wonderful because it's such an easy book to follow, but it gives a different perspective of the Arab American community in California. And she does a very good job of talking about steppe migration, going through Mexico, developing their Latinidad, Mexicanidad identity, where they were both Arab and Mexican. But then when they get to California, easy assimilation for them. But also chapter 2 talks about how the erasure of Arab history was used when we had the Zoot Suit riots in the 1930s, and the lawyer who defended the Mexican-American youth was actually Arab American. But when they went to make the movie, he ended up becoming a white man. So very fascinating, interesting history about that as well. Another great resource is the Khairallah Center for Lebanese Studies. This is mainly focused on Lebanese studies, but I'm going to bring it up here. And what I love about this particular website is you can click on different parts and different activities. One that I really like, I clicked on Syrians in New York. Now we know Syria has one of the older, New York, has one of the older Arab communities as well. And this is mapping movement from 1900 to 1930. And you can go through and look at different parts, employment, marriage outside the community, images. It's such a beautiful, rich history that people can use to really get a sense of what it was like to be Arab American at the turn of the 20th century as well. And then finally, the last one is, of course, PBS's Arab Indianapolis, which I shared with you. Again, Professor Edward Curtis is absolutely amazing. And I think he's a great resource that anybody really can end up utilizing. And if you reach out to him, he's very personable. I love working with him. And one I forgot to add to my list is, of course, the very important the Arab American National Museum, which is in Dearborn, Michigan. And it is a Smithsonian affiliation. And so if you're ever in the Dearborn area, and if you also know anything about Dearborn, one of the largest Lebanese populations as well, and Iraqi populations, also Yemeni. Quick fact, I'm running out of time, but the reason why there's a Yemeni population in Dearborn and in Detroit from the 1920s is because Henry Ford knew that the Yemeni Americans were very good shipbuilders. So he actually recruited them to come and help build the Model T Fords, hence why you have a history of Yemeni Americans in the area of Dearborn and Detroit. So these are just some of the resources and how you can start talking about Arab American history. I'm going to leave some time for questions and comments if you want, because I really would like to see if there are some things that I may have missed or some ideas that you are thinking of. But before I do that, if you're interested in following me on Instagram, I'm at Eltir Ed Consults, or you can send me an email at Abeer at Eltir Ed Consulting. And this is where I finish my session and open the floor to everyone else. Did you lose connection saying my browser lost connection? Are we good?
Yes, we're great, Abeer. Thank you so much. While we wait a minute for questions to come in, I have some questions for you, if you don't mind being put on the spot a little bit.
Sure.
I wonder, so I was really, from the beginning when you said, if we do not tell our stories, then people won't get it right? And I work with students in the U.S. juvenile justice system, and I work a lot with students who are ashamed of their stories, just because of the path that they've taken. And so we try to help them own their story. But I wonder how do we encourage students to not be ashamed of their stories and instead own their own narrative and essentially their voice? How do you think we encourage students to do that?
That's a great question, especially when we live in a society that really demonizes students when they are in the juvenile justice system. I think we have to take it slow, because when we're talking about identity, there has to be a lot of unlearning that needs to take place before we are able to relearn. A really good example is earlier today, I had given a session on the importance of understanding anti-Arab and anti-Muslim hate. And I was talking about myself, I'm a child of the 80s, and a lot of the movies that came out in the 80s were very anti-Arab. And I internalized that myself. Why are my people like this? Why do we act this way? This perception of my people are this, that, and the other. But it took a lot of me being around the right people, doing a little bit more reading, a little bit more introspection. And before I was able to get out of that. So I think with students who are in that conflicted phase, we need to start small and have them understand what they need to unlearn about themselves first. And then even bring in literature, artwork, music that really makes them proud of who they are. And then that way you can take it from there. I think students, unfortunately, in the juvenile justice system are already so hurt. We really need them to heal first before we can have them talk about their identities.
Yes, that's right. We do a lot of building trust and earning respect and showing dignity, and things like that before students feel vulnerable. Yeah, I love that response. I wonder too, and again, if you guys have questions for Abeer, please place them in the chat. We'll take a few minutes here to make sure we're getting to questions. In the meantime, I'll ask all of mine. So we'll just go for it. Okay, so feel free to say I don't want to answer any of my questions, but I also deal a lot with unconscious bias, and I think everyone has unconscious bias, whether they want to admit it or not, or recognize it or not. And I wonder, why do you think people gravitate toward people within their native cultures? I mean, I know that there's a safety there and we feel familiar. And as you were talking about the step migration, I think you called it, it made me think about, I like to ask people, do you still live within 100 miles of where you were born? And most of the people that I talk with say yes. I mean, it's kind of half and half depending on where I am. But I wonder, why do you think we as humans gravitate towards the familiar and our kind of native cultures instead of really wanting to learn more about other cultures?
Kayla, that really is a case-by-case scenario. I think ever since the inception of this country, unfortunately, the nativism has been something that has been indoctrinated in society. And one person said it best about the model example, or what Americans should be or look like. I think because fear is one of the reasons. I think when people are listening to a particular narrative or listening to a particular mantra about a particular group of people, and they don't get to experience those people on a day-to-day basis, it's easier for them to stay guarded. And I think a lot of the reasons why people do stay within their areas because it's comfort. It's human nature for them to just want to be comfortable. What I do find fascinating is there are people who live in areas like where my family lives, large Arab Muslim population, but you still have people who are not from that community who still don't want to have anything to do with Arab or Muslims. And that's because that's their own ignorance that they can't get over, right? The onus shouldn't always be on the other community to welcome people in, because the majority of the time those communities are already very welcoming and they're already going through their own assimilation process, their own trauma that led them to where they are. So the onus is more on the community that they're going into to make them feel welcome, as opposed to the other way around. And it's always been that narrative in the American history that when you have these communities come together, let's talk about Arab communities, for example, they would stick together because number one is familiar. Number two, people who were there before them would help lead the way. And then number three, also, they were able, it's really what we call, I'm losing my train of thought. Oh my God. Code switching. Sorry, code switching. It takes a lot to code switch, right? Yeah. So for people who don't want to learn about other people, a lot of it is fear and feeling safety. But I think they're also missing out on not learning about the people within their own community. I know that was a long-winded answer.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. And honestly, we should chat offline because I have like a million more questions for you. Sure. But thank you so much, Abeer. I really appreciate you sharing this. And I hope that everyone listening really challenges the narratives that are being shared to them and looks into the resources that you shared, because our students are worth it. And the students in our classrooms come from many different cultures other than our own. And we really should be representing and honoring all of those cultures. So thank you so much for spending time with us. This has been an incredible session.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, hope you have
All
a
right.
great rest of your very late night here on the East Coast.
Okay, have a good night or good morning wherever you are.
Thanks so much, Abeer.
Bye.
Throughout today, we have shared incredible spotlight stories from around the globe of how educators are making a global impact in their classroom. But for this very last session, our spotlight story is going to be a conversation with one of our organizing team members, Dr. Alex Boggs. So I'm going to do a little bit of an intro here while he kind of comes on. And obviously, I love to ask questions. So he's stuck here for the next, 10 minutes or so. But Alex is a great member of our organizing team, but we joked earlier that we don't know really what each other does in our day-to-day life. We work together in our global impact life, so it's been really fun. But Alex is an assistant professor of history at Liberty University and a director of graduate and doctoral studies serving Liberty University School of Nursing. He's taught history, historical documentary film, and research capstone courses for over a decade. Outside of teaching, much of his time is spent working with doctoral students, finishing their scholarly projects or dissertations, which, oh my gosh, I have written a dissertation and I wouldn't want to help anybody else with theirs. So kudos to you for that. He serves as a dissertation chair, reader, and methodologist for qualitative dissertations for teachers and nurse educators. He is an ISTE and ASCD community leader and works with the Global Impact Educators to organize our annual conference. He's done many, many, many other things, but for time, we'll get started. So first of all, thanks for chatting with me, Alex. I appreciate you. Yeah, so let's start with what drives your work with Global Impact. What made you want to join our heavily volunteering team here at Global Impact?
Yeah, so the quick answer to that is, I got a chance to present last year and really loved the whole community here. So that gave me an opportunity to say, hey, man, I really want to lean into this. But even before that, I feel like I've always had a global heart to just go travel the world, see different ways people live and how they interact. History was my first gateway into studying that and studying how other people live. And then I got a chance to study abroad in Germany and met so many different people from so many different backgrounds that really rooted me within the rest of the global community, I think for forever, because I just wanted to be so invested in those around me and those around the globe.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's kind of similar to my own story, and listening to Abeer talk about the step migration and thinking that a lot of people do kind of navigate towards or gravitate towards their own cultures because they don't have the opportunity to travel and experience other cultures. Like you, I've spent time in other places like Haiti and things like that. And it really was an eye-opening experience. And I think a lot of our team would say that the reason we have such a passion about global education is because we've seen other cultures and we've experienced the beautiful world of just mixing all of our cultures together and learning so much from other people. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your current role?
Yeah, so I've never been a simple person to have just one job. So I like to say I'm bald because I have to wear a lot of different hats. So I teach history. I work with a virtual K-12 school, teaching high school. I also teach undergrad, modern European history, and then I've created and teach documentary film. So in a lot of different places, but I spend most of my time reading dissertations, organizing our dissertation process, working with faculty, students, to make sure that we have a really well-oiled machine within the School of Nursing to, equip nurse educators and send them out to the field to, fill in the gap of where we're missing nurses within this critical shortage of nurses at the bedside. So that takes faculty to train those nurses. So it's kind of like this whole chain in the whole scheme of it all. But yeah, I wear a lot of different hats, and I don't think I would have it any other way. I like to be busy, thinking in a lot of different ways, and serving, giving my talents in as many ways as I can.
Yeah, that's great. And I think we heard from some of your colleagues earlier in a spotlight session talking about the School of Nursing from Liberty University. So that's a cool kind of connection here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So our theme today has been elevating human stories, and honestly, it's been an incredible day for me personally of amplifying both student and teacher voices. There's been lots of countries represented and cultures represented, and really, it's truly been a joy to kind of help and be on this team to put this together. But we started the day with Rowan asking me questions, and one of her questions I'm going to ask you. How does the kind of deeply local impact you're currently making in your role translate into a broader global vision for educational change?
You know, that's a really great question. I often feel like I don't make a lot of local impact, just because a lot of my roles tend to be virtual, online based, but I can see deeper roots being planted that aren't necessarily local to me, but plant roots elsewhere and spread out. One of the ways that I feel like I can give back is by working with students to help them just connect dots. And that's always what I've felt like my mission has been as an educator. No matter where I'm at, I feel like if I can just get through to students, them to think critically, or really with dissertation students, that's where I've seen a lot of recent growth and progression, is if I can get them to feel like they are confident and competent to be able to produce good work, be researchers, and get to that finish line. I feel like that's really somewhere that I think I can make lasting impact. You know, we heard from Namia Joshi today, and she talked about, you know, each one teach 10. Yeah. I feel like that's part of how I can be, you know, within this global system, even though I feel like I'm not necessarily as locally rooted as I would like to be, but I can have all these tendrils of a tree because I'm able to connect and teach with teach 10, you know, as it were.
Yeah. Namia's session was really great. That's a good reminder. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Not like this isn't already on the spot, but like seriously on the spot. Do you have an incredible student impact story or a project you're really proud of that you can share that I think you do have more impact, you know, locally than you might realize? I think I do the same for myself. But do you have a student project or impact moment or light bulb moment or something that you can share that kind of points to your work?
That's a really good question.
Should I buffer a bit while you think about it?
Yeah, well, I feel like there's so many little things that I've been able to do that kind of, you know, build up the rest of it. So I don't know if I have anything that's like fresh on my brain. I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is creating a documentary film course. Yeah. That's kind of where my heart is in a lot of ways. Any way that I can promote storytelling, I feel like that's kind of something that helps me equip students to go out and communicate history and really think critically. Making that course to be able to be offered online and to connect with students and to teach film, that's probably been one of the most significant things for me personally, but also that impacts others. I've had a lot of students say, I've never thought about history like this through this lens. And I think if they hadn't taken a class like this, I don't think they would have thought differently about history, thought about it as a way or that they could make it through film, that they only could do papers before, but now they could communicate through film. So that in summation is kind of my baby, as it were, because I want students to feel like they can communicate in more than just one way.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. And that's incredible. It's amplifying student voices. It's kind of what I was talking about with Abeer. Like, how do we help students, no matter their age? It could be K-12 or post-secondary or doctoral students or even ourselves? How do we learn to own our stories, our own narratives, and not be ashamed of our voices? Even as adults, you know, the imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon is so strong in a lot of really incredible speakers. That's been something I've been learning a lot about, is this imposter syndrome. And it's like, I've been in this group and it's with incredible presenters, and they're talking about how they're so nervous before they speak. And it's just that idea. But so how do we really own our stories and amplify voices? I think that's the incredible work that you're doing. I'll have one final question for you, and then I'll stop pestering you. But this is our closing session for Global Impact. So as we close today, our theme has been elevating human stories. So what is one piece of advice you have for any of our educators with us now live or watching this as a recording who want to start elevating human stories?
Yeah, I would like to say that I have an original thought on this, but I really want to reference some of the people that have talked today. So let's see, Namia talked about this in her session, going from consumers to producers. Mm-hmm. That's one aspect of it. Our first session, they talked about the same thing, going from consumers to producers. That was Samar and Kamal. Yeah, they talked about all these different ways of communicating. So I think that's the key. You have to put students in the driver's seat and put yourself in that driver's seat to communicate first your own story, and then allow others to communicate theirs. We can say the words and we can communicate our own stories, but we also have to be able to listen to others. And I think that's part of that exchange to grow and engage with storytelling.
Yeah, I love that. It's listening, and to Margaret's comment, it's vulnerability. We have to model for students, what does that look like? How do we elevate human stories, but how do we also show vulnerability ourselves in modeling that? Because if you don't earn students' trust and treat them with dignity and respect, they're not going to want to do anything. It's the Rita Pearson TED Talk. Kids don't learn from teachers they don't like. So I love that. Well, thank you so much, Alex. I really appreciate you jumping on. I think you're doing incredible things, both with our team and in your day job. So thanks so much for hopping on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay, good people. This is our last and final session of the day. It's just been incredible. We've had 13 live sessions. So if you're watching this recorded, please go back and watch all of the other recorded sessions as well. I've learned a lot throughout the day from every single one of our presenters. And I know we as an organizing group have spent a lot of time preparing for today because we are so passionate about amplifying these voices. So please definitely watch these recordings, go back and look at the resources, and really look at how can you elevate human stories. So as we close, we want to thank you again for joining this final live session as part of the Global Impact Virtual Conference. From our whole global team, we are so grateful for the active and energetic participation you've had throughout the day. Please continue with us at Global Impact. You can find more information about us in general at globalimpacteducators.org. And you can follow us on social media. We'll show you that slide in a second. We also would like to invite you to join us at the 2026 ISTE and ASCD conference. We are going to be doing a virtual session, fingers crossed for a live session, and a meetup. So we will be there, whether virtually or in person. So please definitely follow us on social media, email us or something, some way get in contact with us so we can let you know. But we'll be posting all the details about that on our social media accounts soon. ISTE also gave us a discount code that's going to be dropped in the chat. So if you're registering for a virtual registration for the ISTE ASCD conference, you can get $25 off your registration using the code in the chat. So thanks so much to ISTE and ASCD for that little gem. Now you can follow us on social media. There are most of our channels. We're at Global Impact Educators. And I know you've heard it a million times if you've been with us today, but our website is globalimpacteducators.org. Thank you so much for joining. We will see you all next year. Have a good night, everybody.